The world begins to fall into a deeper quiet, as if the earth itself is taking a long, slow breath. The air turns colder day by day, brushing against skin with a sharper bite. Snow drifts down in soft, lazy spirals, settling over old forests, rocky cliffs, and wide open plains. The land changes color, fading from greens and browns into pale whites and soft blues. Animals migrate, searching for places where the cold hasn't yet taken hold. The sky feels heavier, lower, like a blanket stretched across the world. In small groups, early humans notice these changes long before they understand them. They watch the sun set earlier each day, sinking behind the frozen horizon. They feel the nights stretching longer, creeping slowly into the hours once held by daylight. Around their camps, the wind whistles through bare branches, carrying with it a message, one that feels ancient and uneasy. The first cold winds of the Ice Age have arrived. Families gather close together near their fires, which flicker weakly against the rising chill. The flames dance gently, but even their warm glow seems dimmer than before, as if struggling against the encroaching winter. People sit shoulder to shoulder, hands wrapped around their knees or tucked beneath thick furs. They speak in low voices, sharing thoughts they hesitate to say loudly. What is happening to the world? Will the warmth return? How long will this cold last? No one has the answers, but they hold on to hope, the same way they hold on to the warmth from the fire, carefully, protectively. They share food, shelter, and silence. Children curl up close to their parents, listening to the crackle of burning wood. Hunters sharpen their tools, preparing for days that will soon grow even harsher. Elders watch the sky, remembering stories from long ago, whispering that the earth has changed before, and that people have endured. They believe these new winds carry both danger and a test of strength. As the cold deepens, the land begins to feel unfamiliar. Frozen rivers stretch like silver ribbons across the plains. The distant mountains disappear beneath thick layers of snow. Even the sounds of the world shift. Mammoths move more slowly, wolves howl with a deeper echo, and humans take quieter steps as they adjust to the new landscape forming around them. They do not yet know the long journey ahead. They do not know about the thousands of winters waiting for them. But on this first night, surrounded by flickering firelight and the soft hiss of falling snow, they do know one thing: they will face this cold together, and that small resolve, whispered among families, becomes the first spark of survival. The fire becomes more than just warmth, it becomes a living companion, a quiet guardian against the vastness of the growing winter. As the nights stretch longer, almost endlessly, people begin to build their routines around the soft orange glow. The world outside grows harsher each day, but inside the circle of flickering light, there is a sense of safety that feels almost sacred. The flames rise and fall gently, their movements slow and hypnotic. Sparks drift upward like tiny, glowing insects before disappearing into the dark. Families sit close together, wrapped in furs that still smell faintly of the animals they once belonged to. The cold air presses at the edges of their shelters, but within, the fire pushes it back, forming a fragile bubble of comfort in the middle of an endless winter night. Parents whisper calm stories to children whose eyes grow heavy with sleep. Each tale carries its own warmth, reminding them of summers they may barely remember, green grass under their feet, warm winds brushing against their cheeks, bright sunlight dancing on river water. Even the simple memory of warmth feels comforting. Hunters return from long, difficult journeys with frozen breath clinging to their beards and eyelashes. They warm their hands near the fire, letting the heat seep slowly into their bones. The crackle of burning logs fills the silence, a sound that becomes a rhythm, steady and reassuring. They share food, more pieces of roasted meat, carefully portioned to last as long as possible. Every bite is precious, every ember a treasure. People begin to understand that fire is more than survival. It is connection, it is hope, it is the beating heart of their temporary homes. Sometimes, during the deepest hours of night, when the land outside is completely still and the snow settles without sound, someone will add another stick to the flames. The light grows a little brighter, reaching across faces softened by exhaustion and quiet determination. In that moment, the world feels gentler. The cold is still there, vast, powerful, and unrelenting, but the people have found a small, glowing defiance against it. Whispers float through the shadows, soft laughter, quiet conversations, words of reassurance shared between loved ones. Even in the face of freezing winds and a darkening world, these small moments of warmth bind them together. The fire glows like a promise that as long as it burns they will endure the night, and with it, the ice age slowly settling around them. They learn quickly that the cold has changed everything. Plants that once grew freely along riverbanks now hide beneath thick layers of snow. Berries, roots, and herbs foods they once gathered easily become rare treasures, buried deep beneath frozen soil. The world demands new lessons, new paths, new instincts. So the people begin to follow the great herds. They watch the slow, steady movements of mammoths as they migrate across the vast, icy plains. These enormous creatures, covered in dense, shaggy fur, move like ancient guardians of the frozen world. Their footprints press deep into the snow, creating natural trails that stretch for miles. Bison, reindeer, and wild horses follow similar paths, searching for patches of grass still surviving beneath the frost. And behind them, humans walk in quiet determination. Wrapped in thick animal hides, they move together as one. Group families, hunters, children, elders. Their breaths mist in the air, drifting upward like tiny ghosts before fading into the cold sky. Each inhale feels sharp, almost metallic, a reminder of how fierce the winter has become. They travel slowly, listening to the distant rumble of mammoth herds, which guide them like thunder across the plains. Hunting becomes a test of patience. Hunters watch the herds for hours, sometimes days, waiting for the right moment. They move carefully, never rushing, knowing that a single mistake could cost them precious energy, or worse, draw predators closer. Wolves follow the herds too, their yellow eyes glinting through curtains of falling snow. Humans respect them, wary but understanding, for the wolves are struggling to survive as well. At night, when the group stops to rest, the snow crunches softly beneath their feet as they prepare small fires and simple shelters. The land is vast and quiet, but not empty. Every distant footstep, every rustle of wind, every low rumble from the mammoths reminds them that life continues. Even in this frozen age, they learn to read the land in new ways. The direction of the wind, the depth of the snow, the patterns left in ice by migrating animals. These signs become their guides, leading them from one food source to the next. Travel grows exhausting, but necessary. Their bodies adapt to the cold, muscles growing stronger, footsteps more sure. And with each new journey, they understand the rhythm of this icy world a little better. The great herds move with purpose, and the people, following behind them, find purpose to a steady, quiet determination to survive each day. One careful step at a time, they begin to understand that surviving the ice age means more than finding food. They need true shelter places where the brutal winds cannot reach, where snowstorm after snowstorm cannot tear their temporary homes apart. The land offers little, yet somehow, with patience and ingenuity, they learn to build warmth out of the very world that threatens them. They start with what nature provides. Along ancient coastlines, where giant sea creatures once washed ashore, they find massive bones whale ribs arching like the frames of forgotten temples. On the plains, the remains of mammoths provide thick, sturdy structures. These enormous bones, weathered but strong, become the skeletons of their shelters. They lay them carefully in curved patterns, shaping the outline of a home, each bone resting securely against another. They pack snow tightly around the frames, discovering something magical. Snow, when pressed together, becomes a surprisingly warm barrier. It traps heat inside, softening the icy wind until it is no more than a whisper. People carve blocks of snow with stone tools, stacking them in gentle arches, watching as the walls rise around them. The shelters take shape slowly, patiently, each block fitted with quiet care. Furs line the interior, thick mammoth hides, soft reindeer skins, layers upon layers of warmth. These coverings seal the walls, transforming the pale interior into a cocoon of comfort. The moment the furs are hung, the world outside goes silent. The howling wind turns muffled, barely audible. The cold presses against the walls, but inside, warmth lingers like a soft embrace. Children curl up near small hearths, simple pits filled with glowing embers that cast a faint golden shimmer across the curved walls. The fire crackles gently, reflecting off bones polished by ages of time. Smoke drifts upward through a small opening at the top, where cold air sneaks in but cannot overpower the heat. Families settle into these shelters with a sense of relief so deep it feels like gratitude. The world outside may be frozen and unforgiving, But inside these quiet, pale homes, life feels protected. They cook simple meals of meat and herbs, filling the shelter with smells that remind them of safety. Elders sit near the fire, warming their hands, telling stories of summers long past. During blizzards, when snow falls so heavily that the sky seems to disappear, these homes become sanctuaries. The storm roars outside, winds screaming, ice pellets striking the earth, but inside, there is only the soft breathing of loved ones and the gentle pop of burning wood. Here, surrounded by snow, bone, and firelight, the people sleep peacefully. For a few hours, the ice age fades away, leaving only warmth, and the quiet comfort of having built a refuge in a world made of winter. Stone chips fall softly beneath careful hands, each strike sending a tiny spark into the cold air. The people grow quieter during this work, focusing deeply, as if shaping a tool is an act of both survival and meditation. Every moment matters. Every piece of stone, bone, or wood carries the potential to protect a life. They begin with flint, dark, glassy, and sharp. When split correctly, hunters choose the stones with great attention, feeling for the subtle ridges and the smoothest surfaces. They tap gently at first, then with more confidence, sending thin flakes flying. Slowly, a blade emerges, its edge glistening like frozen water under the pale sun. These blades become knives, spear points, and scrapers, each one shaped with patience and purpose. Bone becomes just as precious. Ribs, leg bones, and antlers transform into objects of quiet brilliance. A long, polished bone might be carved into a needle, fine enough to pierce hide, yet strong enough to withstand countless stitches. Antler pieces become barbed points for fishing or hunting smaller animals. Even the tiniest scraps find use: hooks, awls, smoothers that soften tough leather. Nothing is wasted. Wood, though scarce, is treated with reverence. Driftwood from frozen shores or fallen branches from rare surviving trees become spear shafts, bow staves, or tool handles. The people warm the wood near the fire before shaping it, letting the heat make it more flexible. The smell of warming bark mixes with the scent of the flames, creating a familiar comfort. Children watch with wide, curious eyes as sparks dance around the workers. They study every hand movement, every turn of the wrist, every careful chip. These lessons are not taught with words alone. They are learned through rhythm, through observation, through the soft, steady patience of creation. Over time, their tools become masterpieces of survival. A single spear, crafted perfectly, can feed a family for days. A scraper can turn a stiff hide into soft clothing. A needle can stitch together warmth that protects a child through the dead of winter. Each object is small, but together they form the backbone of life in the Ice Age. The people come to see their tools not just as items, but as symbols of resilience. In the silence of the long nights, the quiet tapping of stone against stone becomes a lullaby of hope. The tools glint in the firelight, sharp edges, smooth surfaces, elegant curves, and reflect a truth they're slowly beginning to understand. Survival is not just strength, it is creativity, it is patience, it is the gentle, determined work of shaping the world with their own hands. And as the people finish their tools, placing them carefully beside their sleeping furs, they know that with each blade, each needle, each tiny carved edge, they are crafting more than objects. They are crafting a future, one tool at a time. They begin to understand that warmth is not just a comfort, it is a shield, a quiet barrier between life and the unforgiving cold. As the world slips deeper into winter, clothing becomes as vital as fire, food, or shelter. The people study the animals around them, learning from the thick coats that protect mammoths, reindeer, and bears. Slowly, with patience and skill, they begin to craft their own layers of survival. Furs become their greatest treasure. After each hunt, they prepare the hides with careful attention. Scrapers made from stone and bone glide over stretched skins, removing every rough edge, softening every stiff corner. It is slow work, almost silent except for the steady rhythm of scraping. The hides are then rubbed with fats, oils, or even snow to make them more flexible. Over time they grow softer, warmer, and capable of withstanding the sharpest winds. Mothers sew, inner tunics, soft layers worn close to the body, stitched with bone needles and sinew thread. The stitches are small but strong, each one pulled tight with practiced hands. Children sit nearby, watching the motions with sleepy eyes as the fire casts warm light over everything. The seamstresses hum softly, their voices blending with the gentle crackle of burning wood. Hunters prepare heavier outer clothes, long coats lined with thick fur, designed to keep the body warm even in storms where snow swirls so heavily that the world becomes nothing but white. They stitch leggings reinforced with leather strips, wrap their feet in fur boots stuffed with dried grass for extra insulation. Gloves are made with double layers, soft inside, coarse outside, so fingers remain nimble enough to hold tools despite the cold. They make hoods that cover ears and cheeks, leaving only the eyes exposed. When the icy winds blow, these hoods protect their faces from frostbite, shielding vulnerable skin. Sometimes the people decorate their clothing with little touches, patterns made from sinew, beads carved from bone, small braids of fur. Even in hardship, they find space for quiet beauty. Children's clothing is crafted with particular care. Parents wrap their little ones in layer after layer, tying belts made of woven fibers around tiny waists to keep the warmth close. The smallest babies are swaddled in soft hides, their faces barely visible, tiny breath rising like faint mist in the chilly air. When the people step outside in their finished clothing, they move like figures shaped from the winter itself, wrapped in furs, cloaked in hides, carrying the warmth of their shelters with them. Snow clings to their coats but melts slowly, held back by the deep insulation. The cold tries to bite at them, but they are ready for it now. Clothing becomes more than protection. It becomes a symbol of everything they have learned, everything they have adapted to, everything they must continue to endure. Wrapped in these layers of skill and patience, the people feel the strength of their community in every stitch, every strap, every fold of fur. They are not just dressed for the cold, they are embraced by their own craftsmanship, prepared to face the endless winter with quiet, determined resilience. As winter deepens and the nights stretch longer than any living memory, the people begin to rely more than ever on something just as essential as food, fire, and shelter: knowledge. And in this frozen world, knowledge is carried not in books or markings, but in the soft, steady voices of the elders. These elders have walked through many seasons. They remembered times when the land was warmer, when rivers flowed freely instead of resting beneath crystal sheets of ice, when forests stretched wider and animals roamed without the constant chase for survival. Their memories are treasures, held close, shared only when the fire is calm and the night is still. On these quiet evenings, families gather around the burning embers, listening with half-closed eyes as the elders speak in gentle whispers. Their words drift into the air like warm smoke, slowly rising, softly settling. They talk about the patterns of the stars, how certain constellations help guide hunters back home, how the shifting sky can warn of storms. They speak of the land's hidden paths, where frozen rivers can be crossed safely, and where the ice is thin enough to threaten a life. The children listen most intently. Their small hands clutch furs, their faces illuminated by firelight. They absorb every detail, even the ones they don't yet understand. These lessons will follow them into adulthood, shaping the instincts they will one day depend on. Stories, warnings, and wisdom weave together like threads of an invisible cloak, one that will protect them long after the elders have grown quiet. The elders teach them the tracks of wolves and bears, how a paw print pressed deep into the snow means the animal is heavy and close, while faint, light tracks mean it is moving quickly and far. They describe how snow changes its sound with the temperature, how certain winds carry scents from far-off herds, how ice sings softly when it begins to crack beneath the surface. Sometimes the lessons come in the form of legends, tales of great mammoths that saved lost hunters by leading them to safer ground. Stories of powerful snows that once covered entire valleys, memories of brave ancestors who survived winters even harsher than this one. These stories blend truths with hope, reminding the people that they come from a long line of survivors. The younger adults listen to, though they pretend to be busy sharpening tools or tending the fire. They hear the unspoken wisdom in the elders' voices, the reminder to stay patient, to watch the land carefully, to trust the signs nature offers. They learn that survival is not only about strength or speed, it is about understanding, observation, and respect. As the fire crackles softly and snow taps gently against the shelter walls, the wisdom lingers in the warm air, sinking deeply into the hearts of everyone gathered. The night outside may be cold and silent, but inside, knowledge passes from one generation to the next, whisper by whisper. It is this shared wisdom, quiet, ancient, and steady, that becomes the people's greatest inheritance, a gift that will guide them through every storm the Ice Age has yet to bring. The storms grow stronger as the ice age settles deeper across the land. Some days, the wind screams across the plains with such force that it seems to erase the horizon entirely, turning the world into a blur of white. Other days are eerily quiet, the cold so sharp and still that even breathing feels like cracking thin ice. In these moments, the people realize that survival requires something as important as food, tools, or warmth: the courage to keep moving. They travel not because they want to, but because the frozen world demands it. The great herds shift their routes as snowfall thickens and plants become harder to find. And so the people follow slowly, steadily, refusing to let exhaustion anchor them to a place that can no longer provide what they need. The snow crunches under their feet in a soft, rhythmic pattern. Each step leaves behind a footprint that is quickly softened by drifting flakes. Their breaths rise in pale clouds, merging with the cold air in gentle bursts. Wrapped in thick furs, they move like quiet shadows across the vast white landscape, heads lowered against the wind, bodies leaning forward with determination. The journeys are long and often unsettling. Sometimes the sky is so white that it blends with the ground, creating a world without edges. Hunters lead the way, tapping the snow with long sticks to test for hidden ice. When they cross frozen rivers, they listen for the faintest cracks beneath their feet, moving slowly, spreading their weight, guiding the others with soft hand signals. They know that rushing can mean disaster. There are moments when nature shows a rare kindness, when the wind calms and the air grows still enough for them to hear distant echoes, the calls of birds. The rumble of mammoths miles away, the soft groan of shifting ice. These sounds guide them forward, giving them direction when the land seems endless and empty. Sometimes they rest beneath rocky overhangs or in shallow caves where the wind cannot reach them. They build small fires, their flames flickering weakly against the cold stone walls. They eat quietly, conserving energy, sharing bits of dried meat and melted snow. Children huddle close to their parents, eyes heavy, leaning into the warmth of familiar bodies. The adults exchange tired glances, but their resolve never wavers. Despite the fatigue that settles deep in their bones, they always rise again. They push through storms that sting their faces and numb their fingers. They climb hills blanketed in ice, their steps slow and measured. They cross valleys where the silence feels ancient and almost sacred. Each day, they move a little farther, driven by the knowledge that somewhere ahead, the land will offer food, shelter, or safety. Their footsteps are quiet, but they carry a powerful message. They will not surrender to the cold. Even when the world feels frozen in place, they keep going one careful step at a time. It is this steady courage, this patient endurance, that becomes their greatest strength. In a time when the earth itself seems asleep beneath layers of ice, the people continue to move forward, gently, bravely, guided by the hope of another day. In the heart of the ice age, when the world feels too large, too cold, and too silent, the people discover something that becomes more powerful than any tool, any fire, or any shelter. They discover the warmth of one another. It begins in small moments, quiet gestures that ease the weight of survival. A shared piece of meat passed from one hand to another. A fur cloak draped around a shivering child. A gentle touch on the shoulder after a long, difficult journey. These simple acts create a kind of warmth that no winter wind can take away. Families walk close together as they travel across the frozen plains. Adults position themselves on the outer edges of the group, shielding the younger ones from harsh gusts of snow. Older children helped carry small bundles, learning responsibility not through commands but through example. At night, everyone gathers tightly around the fire, forming a circle of comfort. The smallest children curl into the spaces between adults, wrapped in soft hides, falling asleep to the sound of slow, steady breathing. Laughter becomes rare but precious. Sometimes a child's quiet giggle breaks through the silence of a frozen evening, and the whole group shares a moment of lightness. Someone tells a small joke or reenacts a clumsy hunt from earlier in the day, and the firelight catches the corners of smiling faces. In these moments, the ice age feels a little less fierce, as if even the cold pauses to listen. When a hunter returns tired and empty-handed, no one scolds or complains. Instead, they offer him a place by the fire, a warm drink, a share of what little food they have. They know that tomorrow, the roles may be reversed. Survival is a balance, and they lean on each other with quiet understanding. Their strength comes not from individuals, but from the whole, woven together like fibers of a cord thin alone. unbreakable together. In the shelters they sleep close, woven into a tangle of limbs and furs. Bodies share warmth. Soft whispers travel from one person to another, stories, reassurances, small comforts. A hand reaches out in the dark to calm a frightened child, and the child's breath slows. Someone hums a slow tune, an old melody passed down through many winters, and the entire group relaxes into its familiar warmth. Even during danger, their unity shines. When predators lurk nearby, they stand together, shoulders aligned, weapons raised, forming a protective wall. When storms threaten to bury their shelters, everyone works in silence and harmony, packing snow, strengthening supports, clearing paths. The cold tests them again and again, but every challenge only tightens the bonds between them. They survive because they share everything: their fire, their food, their strength, their hope. In a world buried beneath ice, love becomes their quiet resistance, community becomes their warmth, and through this shared warmth, they prove that even in humanity's harshest winter, hearts can burn brighter than the coldest night. The change begins so slowly that at first, no one notices. The air feels just a little softer one morning. The wind carries a hint of moisture rather than the dry bite of frost, and the ice along the river glimmers with thinner, more delicate patterns. After generations of endless winter, these tiny shifts feel almost unreal, like the world is whispering a secret too gentle to believe. Days pass, then weeks, and the signs grow stronger. The sun lingers a little longer in the sky, stretching its rays across the frozen plains in pale gold. Snow that once seemed permanent begins to sink, settling into uneven patches. Drips of water fall from icy ledges, soft and rhythmic, like the earth is learning to breathe again. Animals sense the change first. Herds move with new energy. Birds call more frequently from higher branches, and even the wolves seemed less restless, their howls echoing through a landscape that is beginning to wake. The people watch all of this in quiet awe. They've known cold their entire lives. They've walked through storms that swallowed the horizon, felt snow pile against their shelters, heard the deep groaning of glaciers shifting through the night. The idea that warmth could return is almost too big to grasp. And yet, each day, the world offers gentle proof. Grass begins to peek through melting snow, tiny green blades trembling in the morning air. Rivers crack open, their icy lids breaking away as water begins to flow once more, slowly at first, then with growing certainty. The sound of running water feels like music, like something ancient and familiar, finally returning. Children are the first to run toward the thawing earth. They touch the wet ground with their fingertips, marveling at the soft mud beneath the surface. Adults follow, more cautious but deeply moved. They breathe in air that carries not just cold, but the fresh scent of soil and distant growth. Days grow warmer, nights become less harsh. The people begin to shed outer layers of their heavy clothing, testing the gentler air with quiet wonder. Their fires, once essential to survive the deep freeze, now burn smaller, softer. They cook meals in the open light, letting the sun warm their faces as they eat. Elders smile slowly, softly remembering the world before the ice. They whisper stories of green valleys, warm rains, and bright summers. And for the first time in generations, these stories feel possible again. The younger ones listen with excitement, imagining landscapes they've never seen but now might one day walk across. As the earth awakens, so do the people. They step into the new world with calm gratitude, knowing how long and how bravely they've endured the endless winter. They look over valleys where mammoths still roam, where rivers shine beneath the sun, where patches of green stretch wider each day. And at the edge of dawn, as the first full spring sunrise spills across the land, the people gather quietly. They watch in silence, letting the golden light wash over them. They feel warmth on their skin, warmth many of them have never truly known. And in that gentle moment, surrounded by life returning, they whisper the stories of how they survived. Stories of courage, stories of patience, stories of the quiet strength that carried them through the ice age, all the way into the world of melting snow and new beginnings.